you think you're protecting yourself by not taking risks, and you're actually really risking everything. You're really risking, you're overprotecting yourself is a huge mistake and is corrosive and will you'll end up hating your life.
Welcome to the Next Level Guy Show podcast. I'm Ian, and this is where men rebuild discipline, confidence, and take control of their lives. No hype, no excuses, just real conversations and practical tools. Let's get into today's episode. Most men don't need another motivational quote. They need enough evidence to believe that they're capable. That's exactly what today's conversation is all about. My guest is Sam Sheridan, an author who spent decades deliberately choosing difficult experiences, not because hardship is something to glorify, but because he believes that experience changes who we become in ways that comfort never can. We explore why capability reduces fear, why confidence is earned rather than found, and what an ordinary man can learn from a life built around voluntary hardship. Because this isn't really an episode about fighting, it's about becoming someone who no longer lets fear make their decisions. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Sam. This is the Next Level Guy podcast. Laugh, learn, and level up. And now let's get to the interview. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. You have no idea how much of an honour this is. You've been on my bucket list guest for a long time now. But for those who don't recognise the star that is before me, how would you introduce yourself?
I'm a writer. That's what I am. If you want to know more, I have a book you can read or several. I always I buckle a little bit. I'm good on paper. I look good on paper. But I don't have a lot of patter about my backstory. I don't have it all. But I'm just a writer. I've been doing it for a long time. I used to write nonfiction books, and it was great to me. I had a great journey with martial arts and fighting, and then survival stuff, and then I met my wife, and I came to Los Angeles, and I like to joke it's like a coal mining town. Like you end up in the coal business, like you just end up in the Hollywood business of. It's like your dentist is like, hey, I got a script. You're like, sure, man, I'll read your script, dude. That's cool. Send it over. And so I got into screenwriting and TV writing, and the book business really changed in those. So I wrote for 15 years or so, and the book business really kind of changed on me. And I didn't. Again, and also, I wrote as good a book as I could write, and it didn't sell that well. So for me, transitioning into TV and film was sort of a natural thing to do, and the money's a lot better. It's a whole weird. We can go down that rabbit hole, but it is what it is. So anyway, yeah, I'm just a writer. I'm really interested in the world, and I love what I do. So there you go.
Because I was always keen to have you on, not so much just because everybody talks about the fighting aspect of it and the amazingly cool stuff you did, but I was always intrigued by how you didn't do it but like hardship because it was noble. You did it because it let you find the truth about yourself and about the world. You said there, you had an interest in the world. Did you see it like that, or is it only when you've written your books you've kind of reflected?
A little bit of both, I guess. I think the interesting thing about writing a book is you take the money and you got to write the book. It's like because I spent it. They gave me money, and they're like, you got to write a book about, and you got to be about yourself. It's like you got to confess. Like you have to. I think it was Philip Roth said, discretion is not for the writer. You got to talk about yourself. You got to get honest and dig into your own character and dig into your own, your own path, your own arcs. The short version is I think I always was, a little bit of like, I don't like being afraid of things. And then I think that the way to not be afraid of them is to do them. You know what I mean? Is to let go and sort of, do it enough that the mystique of it fades, the fear of it fades away. Whether it was, talking to girls or getting in a ring or whatever. There was always that vibe, and I think the bigger version. Actually, there's So when I think it was after the first book. It was in about 2004. I got a tattoo that says the world is made of fire, and it says other things, but it says the world is made of fire, which is a quote from a Mark Halperin book. And basically, the idea was you realize like you think you're protecting yourself by
Mm.
not taking risks, and you're actually really risking everything. You're really risking. You're overprotecting yourself is a huge mistake and is corrosive and will make you'll end up hating your life. You'll end up hating what happened, and so that was kind of my take on it. It's interesting because you're coming to me now. It's like I'm 51, and what that's about has changed, and what the risks I take and those things, it's all changed. But anyway, I don't know if that answers that question, but it's a little rambling.
I know. I mean, because there seems to be this sort of core theme through your books that like comfort gives opinions, but it doesn't ever give you the real understanding. Like you have to give the experience to truly understand something. And the voluntary hardship, it strips away the illusion of what we think we are in the world. Would you agree with that, or is that just a bit kind of
Absolutely.
like that's great for the book sales, but
No, no, absolutely. No, I think understanding is, I think I'm an atheist, but I think you have a God given duty to try to understand the world, right? Like you're here for a reason to try to understand the world, and you can't understand it unless you've done it, right? There's just no understanding. I listen, I watch sports and you hear commentators and you're like, yeah, whatever. But when it's an ex athlete, when it's the guy who did it, you're like, oh, I'm interested in what this guy has to say, even if he's not that well spoken. I'm much more interested in what that person has to say about what's happening out there. So I think you just trying to understand the world leads you down this path of doing it, of getting into it, trying to do it. And there's it's like there's also there's a little bit of there's a masochistic quality to some of it, which is why do you bang your head against the wall? Well, it feels great when I stop, right? It feels
no.
amazing when I stop. So I love going camping and suffering because I like you lose how great your shower is. Your shower is fucking awesome, but like you get you obviously you do it every day. You don't care about it, but if you haven't done it in a week, it sort of recharges. Lets you look at these kind of blessings you have in a new way.
And
So
do you
there's both
think
those.
is that like a big problem with today's society? We've become so, you can order a date online, you can get a car to your door, you can order food to your door. You never actually need to interact or really push and challenge yourselves.
I mean, I think, listen, I get very wary of anybody who says the problem with today's society is X because, you know, isn't like the oldest written words are like kids these days is like on Hammurabi's like, pillars carved in stone. It's like,
The
Homer
complaint.
said men are shadows of what they were. Homer was like, men are today are pussies. You know what I mean? And like, so there's a kind of commonality of like, when you were a kid, you thought men were tough, and now you're a man, you realize they're all kind of hiding it or whatever.
Mhm.
But I will say, yeah, no, I think even just living on the West Coast, I live in California, and it's beautiful every day, and everybody's in their car, and you never are hungry or cold or tired. Whereas at least you have to walk in the rain, like you're in, you have to go out and walk in the rain, and like there's a little bit of adversity there, and here you don't have any of it.
And do you think that's a problem with like today? I mean, people use like the masculinity problem, the loneliness, they use these terms to try to justify behavior. Whereas a lot of times we have no rites of passage, and people lure towards like Andrew Tate for they want to blame somebody rather than just go, I can fix this because it's my own path.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think and this is something I used to be much more involved in, so my answers aren't as good as they used to be. But when I was doing these podcasts years ago, but no, absolutely, like the rite of passage, like you're saying, I think like what is a man, it's particularly in Western culture, is ever changing, right? It's always needs to be proved. You're never done. You're never there, right? And it's also like Is it voting age? Is it drinking age? Is it, you can get a car? Is it your father dies? What is the kind of marker of manhood? And certainly in America, and probably in England as well, and in Scotland, is like this kind of, you need to keep proving it, right? It's never proved. It's never settled that your
Yeah.
manhood, and that's part of the problem. Whereas in, some older cultures, you would pass the rites of initiation, you would get the secret information, and you're a man and you're good. Like you kind of know, okay, at least I'm a man, and at least whatever else happens, that's done. So yeah, that's part of it. I mean, I think there's a lot of huge, things about technology that are definitely fucking us up in terms of the loneliness epidemic. But it's hard to say. That's a whole. We could get lost in the weeds on that for sure.
But I mean, those are podcasts on their own, and I think we're always
Yeah,
going to have that of rather than just say to young guys, go and get involved and do things, we're going to say, oh, it's this, it's that, it's here's a reason to blame. But if we look back and we break before all the books, before Hollywood, before fatherhood, before the fighting, etc. Who would you say Sam was? Who, like, before you went on this voyage?
I was a kid. I mean, I was just a nerd. I loved reading. I was a kid who was made fun of for always having a book in his hand. Because I grew up without a television. My parents were teachers and they got rid of it. So I read, like I was breathing. I sort of always, at the dinner table or whatever. And I was writing early. I started writing like terrible plagiarism as a little kid. Like The Hobbit Part Two or whatever. You would always, because you want to go back to these worlds, right? You want to go back and live. This is why there's endless sequels, or knockoffs of Harry Potter or The Hobbit or whatever. Is because people miss that and want to stay in that world and want those characters back. Yeah, that's. I mean, I was just a fucking nerd, and then you also like. I think you want to be Conan, right? You want to be the hero. You want to be the badass. You want to be Bruce Lee. You want to be a ninja. It's like you want to be a killer and a tough guy and a badass. And so, I had a rich fantasy life, and I decided I needed to learn. I'll just say this: like, then I had dabbled in martial arts, as a kid, and done a lot of karate and things like that. A lot of them, what they call, pajama party stuff. This is in the
Yeah,
'90s or
cuddling
'80s.
sweaty men.
Yeah, just a lot of katas and whatever, and then I started boxing, in college, and I did love it. I mean, I just loved it. It was so fun, like because it was like you get all the charge, of somebody's trying to kill you, and this guy's trying to kill me, and then like it doesn't hurt that much. It hurts a little, but it's not like that big a deal, and you don't die. So that's what kind of sent me on my whole fighting journey.
And
Um,
was that, I mean, what had to break in you to get to that point, do you think? Was it that suddenly you come out the books and then you realize somebody says, right, you're on your own now, you've got to go and live and do these things by yourself, and the fear of not the unknown? Because I'm still like, what the hell am I doing in my 40s? I'm still like, I have no clue. What broke in
I
you at that
started,
point?
I started young. I think I started young, going and doing stupid shit. Like I think I wanted to live a life that I read about, like that one of these guys that I was reading about. So I went into the Merchant Marine after high school, and I just for a year because I had already gotten into college, so I knew I had a safety valve, right? It wasn't like just rolling the dice, like. But I went, at 17, and I took, there was an unmanned train station. I mean, it was like a Norman Rockwell painting. Like it was the middle of the night. I had my duffel, and I like the train stops, and I climb on, and it's like going off to the Merchant Marine, Mom. Like nobody was there, and my parents didn't come or whatever to see me off. But so I was kind of doing independent stuff fairly young, and even younger than that, I was doing stuff. But by the way, my son hilariously is like he just cannot listen to me and is so independent. Like he just takes off all the time. Like he's ready to be on his own. It's like I see it,
It's
man.
almost like he read certain books, the
He did read one of them. He read one of them at least. I think. I don't know. That's always weird. You're like, what did I say in there? Like, did I talk about drugs in there? I'm like, oh shit. Like, what did I confess to?
I do love the books because, like, in there, you talk about like how you take you're not up in the clouds with the guys you write about. You get them to talk about the basic stuffs. When you went to Thailand and coming in and nobody would really speak to you at the start because you were a foreigner and they thought, oh, foreigners didn't last. Or you were talking about how like closed guard like the missionary position, all the things that like people who are in those kind of worlds understand the hardships and the real struggles. But you ended up going to Harvard. You had the opportunity to live a lovely life, intellectually successful, comfortable, no struggles at all, and then you left. What was it in your head at that point?
Well, I mean, again, so I went to Harvard, but I wasn't like a super wealthy kid. I wasn't like my parents were teachers, so it wasn't like there was like a trust fund that was going to take care of me or whatever. But yeah, I mean, but Harvard, I was like lucky to get through there, right? I mean, in terms of I was painting, I was a painting major. I did 3 years, and I did a year at the Slade School in London. Uh, where I was just painting and just doing stuff. Yeah, I mean, I really wonder how much choice you actually have in your life. Sometimes you think, really, what could you have done differently?
No.
I mean, I think I would have lost my fucking mind if I had tried to be a lawyer or whatever, or do. I mean, even now in this business, like I'm in the TV and film business, and you like negotiate hard for a contract. You're like, yeah, I got paid, and you're like, man, if we were investment bankers, we would be fucking like that's not even my bonus. You know what I mean? You'd be just killing it. So, but I couldn't have done it. I don't think I would have lasted. I mean, I had a season where I tried to have a regular job in Boston, and I was temping and going to office. I was going to a law office with a coat and tie on, and I was I ran away to South Africa or something, or got on a boat. I
As you
cracked
do.
up.
I mean, do you think that's a big part of this? Is that when we look at the books, when we look at Hollywood, it doesn't always give like an authentic kind of storytelling. It's always like the hero's journey, like Campbell's hero journey, like led up to the extreme, up to 11. Whereas when suddenly we realize that life isn't like this, that we are not the hero in our own story as much.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know. I think that's a big one. I mean, because again, I'm involved in screenwriting now, and I think part of what you're doing is you're trying to work meaning into things that often don't get meaning. I mean, I think a lot of places Hollywood fails is that's a whole. We could talk for 10 million years. I could talk your ear off. But there is something real about a character arc, and even if it's not um, instantly accessible to you, it's like again. So when I wrote the first book, I kind of had to find an arc for myself, and it's some of it's sort of like, was it really like that? Well, yeah, but it is. You also have to kind of clarify an idea, right? Or else the book isn't that interesting, right? You have to kind of clarify. And there was an idea which was like, okay, I went to Thailand, and the best fighters in the camp were the best Buddhists, right? Were the chillest guys. And why was that, right? So like that kind of question is like, why were these guys who were so chill, and the guys who were dicks and had tons of ego were like the third tier guys, or even
Mm.
maybe the second tier guys, but definitely not the top tier guys were super super calm and super good Buddhists, um, nice to be around. So yeah, I mean, I think there's like interesting truths that you just in terms of storytelling now, like which is what you try to reflect in a screenplay or a TV show or whatever. You try to find a truth and anchor to character, and that's why you kind of get this over and over again repeated hero's journey stuff. Um, yeah, I mean it is not real. I mean, again, like I adapted this woman's book once. And I had to kind of turn her life into a few weeks. You know what I mean? Because this is her. You can't make you have to make choices in terms of what you're going to show on screen and what you're going to do, and you kind of have to look for the essential truth of her life, which was she found out she was incredibly damaged and came from the worst thing you could imagine. Like she came out of incest and she came out of like, murder, her father, or maybe. And then she found a way to be okay with it. Right. And that was her lifetime journey.
Mm.
But I kind of had to boil it into, okay, like we're going to tell this in like, a couple of months or whatever, you know what I mean? So again, I'm running all over the place, but, it's a mixed bag, man. I mean, it's a mixed bag what the kind of character arc stuff is all about, and how it applies to real life. I mean, there is value in it, but of course, yeah, life's messy, man. Life doesn't. I mean, you never see Batman go to the bathroom, right? Like they don't tell that part of this.
Well, they don't give him a zipper, do they? I think that's possibly a pet hate of every superhero at the
Yeah,
minute.
the whole fucking thing's got to come off. Yeah.
So, do you think like your central theme that you've kind of discovered through the books were like that, the voluntary hardship, it builds capability in life. Capability builds identity, and identity changes your life. So you have to go on these voyages to find it. Like, what does somebody lose if they don't go down and pick voluntary hardship, and they've always taken the easy road out in life?
Well, I think you're just you're not necessarily going to lose everything, but you're risking it. I think you're risking your sanity and your kind of, let's just say, this meaning, right? Like meaning is there's, I always talk about like, policemen or guys in the army, or I know a lot of guys who special forces guys or whatever. They don't get paid a lot of money. There's no money in it, but they get paid in meaning, right? Like
Mm.
they're here saving the world, right? They're keeping terrorists away, or they're catching bad guys, or if you're a paramedic, you don't get a lot of money and the hours suck, but you get paid. You're saving lives like every day, right? So I think the risk you run, and I think this is important for everyone, is purpose and meaning, right? Is having something that you can believe in, and justifies. I mean, that's why, like, yeah, iBankers, lawyers, whatever. Like, you're like, okay, I'm here for the money, right? And that's you're putting meaning there, and I think that ends up, it can be okay if you find other great places for meaning in your family and whatever, your
Mm.
hobbies and your life. But it can be corrosive, right? Because you can get just, I mean, you see it in these billionaires, right? These guys are all, the process is warping them, right? In terms of it's turning, nobody ever tells them no. Nobody, they never hear a no. They hear they're their genius. It's real corrosive to anybody, to hear you're a genius every day. Like nobody can handle that. You see it with, I used to see it with fighters, like they have 50 yes guys around them. They all end up off their rocker. And you see it with all these billionaires, right? They sort of, I mean, they say the dumbest shit. And you're like, what? How the fuck did you end up there? And it's like, well,
Uh,
he's been hearing how smart he is for the last 20 years. Nobody tells him, and the world's rewarded him. And so that's what I think the danger is, like, when you don't have respect, when you don't have self-respect, and when you don't have meaning in your life, you're just, yeah, I think there's a huge amount of downstream problems, and you can find it in lots of ways, right? Like there's a million ways to find meaning, and there's a million ways to do it in a super healthy way. Look, we're getting really self-help here. We're getting into it, but like,
I
there's
mean,
a lot of ways. You know what I mean? Like, what's your purpose, right? Like, find a good one, right?
but did you find that at the start, though, like that? The flip side was that you were suddenly the example that everybody looked to for a guy doing these voluntary hardships. Because I found that when I was listening to a lot of interviews you did, it was almost like the host was fighting you to kind of prove themselves, to prove they're tough and they've done cooler things. And did you find that at all? That it like what did the decisions cost you to go this route compared to the safer, go get a job and 2.4
I don't
kids?
think yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say it was just in me, because I think that is a cop out. I mean, you can say it and it's fine. And for certain people, who don't think critically, whatever, it's like that's what they say. Um, I mean, it is funny, once you get into the fighting game at all, right? Everybody has a fighting story. Like the amount of guys, every guy I meet has like, oh, I saw Tyson, or oh, this boxing, or my dad used to do this. And
Mm.
it was funny because I have a friend who wrote a book about firearms and like classic firearms. And he's like, man, I cannot get away from like anybody. oh, I got this old gun. I got my dad had this, so it's just that's men in general. There's a hilarious old boxing writer who was like, he takes his buddy to the fights for the first time. And his buddy's like, am I going to like it? Is what, and then by round two, his buddy is screaming advice. Like everybody knows what the fighter should be doing, right? It's like, hit him
Yeah.
with the thing. And you're like, nobody really knows. But,
It's like the saying, isn't
yeah,
it? Everybody's got a plan until they're hit in the face, and then it quickly goes out the window. Like,
yeah, right. Or they say, what do they say? You're a black belt. And like, okay, now you're a brown belt and now you're a blue. No, it's like you stop thinking. Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, I've sort of lost it where you were going, but in terms of me and what I was looking for and risk, yeah, you know what? I think it just was. I actually think it was probably almost accidental, which was I did some semi hard things as a young person, and I enjoyed them enough. Like I went on this Knowles camping trip to the Wind River Range in Wyoming, which is a sort of a famous like hardcore camping trip. And I was like 15, and everybody else was like 18 or 20, and I had a fucking blast. And it was, I lost like 20 pounds, and my football coach. I came back and was like, "What did you do?" Because I was playing, high school football. They're like, "You need to eat, dude." But you realize you also have moments of beauty that you can't get another way. You couldn't have gotten here, right? Like there's a sunrise on a mountainside and you're 40 miles from a trailhead. Or, I used to be a sailor. I was a professional sailor for years, and I worked on boats, and I was, you'd end up, you have the night watch and you're watching dawn, and you're in the middle of the Pacific. You're 2,000 miles into from any land. And you're like, yeah, but you couldn't get here if all that shit, like all the decks I scrubbed and all the, kind of horrible, chemicals I was dealing with to clean rust, you wouldn't get, you got to do it to get here. Right. So I think appreciating those moments and finding that beauty is probably something that happened to me early on. But I think it's true. I think I had a great time. I had a blast. So it worked for me.
because each chapter of your books are like a podcast on their own. But as soon as you say to somebody, "Have a read of that," the first thing they do is, "Right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go way out there and go live in my car and drive up to like the Serengeti or what, all these kind of things." How do people distinguish between meaningful hardship from pointless suffering? But how do we actually avoid actually going into danger just for the sake of trying to bring hardship into our life?
Yeah, totally. No, that's a good question. I mean, I think, the short answer is like, you got to write about it, right? You got to think about it. You got to kind of bring some intentionality to it. Bring some, what is it Thoreau says, that unexamined life is not worth living, or somebody said that, but like, examine why you're doing it. And if you bring a lens onto it, now it's worthwhile and it has meaning to it, right? Because like you're looking at your own struggles with depression or whatever. Like now
Mm-hmm.
there's a bigger picture here, and you found meaning. The luckiest thing that ever happened to me, really, no, there's a couple things. Meeting my wife was the luckiest thing, but
You're a smart man saying that.
yeah, it's true. But I met a guy who helped me get published. So because I was living, I was 30 or 29 or something, and I was living on boats, and I'd worked in Antarctica, and I was fighting. I'd been a hotshot, like a wildland firefighter, and I was, that's a very seasonal drifter kind of live in your car, life. But I met a guy who kind of helped me tell a story, and I was like, oh, and it really gave. First of all, just everybody relaxes, right? Like your parents, like you're like, oh, he's a writer, like it's okay, he's not a sketchy semi-homeless dude living in his friend's garage. He's a writer. It's fine. Like, girls you meet are like, oh, he's a writer. It's okay. He's not somebody that I can't go out with or whatever. But yeah, I guess that's probably it. Is just finding a reason and it doesn't have to be the same as mine. Of course, there's a million ways, and that's like people write. I used to get a lot of guys who like, I want to go do MMA and write about it, or do live in Thailand and write about it. And I was like, yeah, man, it's a big tent, dude. Like, by all means, like, have a great time. Like, you're going to learn a lot about yourself. I mean, one of my pat answers was, which is also true, is that like fighting's about identity, right?
Mhm.
Which is, I'm going to lie to you. I'm going to try to deceive you, but I better know who I am. I better know what kind of fighter I am, right? Like, am I like Pernell Whitaker? Do I have like great hit? No. Like, do I have awesome defense? Like, no, you're a white guy with good endurance and reach. Like, you're going to fight like me. Right. You're going to fight a certain way, and you're going to, we're gonna find out if I'm stronger than you or if I'm in better shape than you. So like, I might say I'm gonna bully you. I'm gonna get you in there. I'll bully him. It's like, well, we'll see. Um, so anyway, that's what I think fighting is also. And by the way, jujitsu is amazing for that, right? It's like, I think jujitsu is. I had my son do it because I think it's anti-bullying, right? It's like, your experience when you go in there is you get crushed by everyone, right? So you have to submit. You have to tap. And then eventually, like, oh, a new guy comes in and now you can tap him. But, you've just been getting crushed by everyone. So you're not a dick to the guy. You're like, hey, man, it sucks. Like, just tap early and often, and we get through it. I think it's not always, and there's plenty of assholes in jiu-jitsu, but overall, I think it kind of, you have to learn to submit, right? You have to learn to put your ego to the side. So I think it's valuable.
It's quite amazing, don't it? It's like you can be 20 odd stone, big brick shithouse, and the second you get tapped by the 150-pound girl who arm bars you like it's nine, and you're like, oh, your whole life just changes because you realize you're not this version of yourself who you thought. But I mean, I did notice that in a lot of interviews, you like referring to a lot of books, and you kind of, it helps your thinking, and you've got a lot of quotes that you can sort of mention, etc. But you never seem satisfied about reading about it. You always seem to have to go and live it. Does this lead into the thing you were saying about identity and the experience of actually doing it as much as thinking it and reading it?
Well, I think you're going to understand it better. I mean, obviously, not everything can I go do anymore. I'm too old, and like, I'm not going to be a fighter pilot, right? Like, I got to read books about that. Like, I tried to write a script about a fighter pilot. I got to read 50 books. I talk to a lot of guys, and I try to put myself there, and I try to think about it. But obviously, the best thing to do would be to really go do it. You know what I mean? And then you really, because I think again, it goes back to fighting. To me, was that as a kid, little kid, you look at fighting, and I think people look at it how they look at sex before they've had sex, right? Which is like, it's mysterious, like, something's going to happen. I don't know what. And there's a lot of anxiety and like, what's it going to feel like? And then you do it and you're like, oh, right. Okay. It's not like a whole nother universe opened up. It's like, yeah, you're still you. Like, you still got to make decisions in there, and you still got to make moves and think. And I don't know if I ever would have figured that out about fighting, or it was such a revelation to me about fighting by doing it. So I think, learning that lesson, at least get as close as you can, right? Talk to as many people who have done it. I work in TV now, so I work on shows, and people will often not want to talk to, like, like, I had a friend do a police show, and I was like, oh, you're doing ride-alongs, which means like you're going to ride along in the back seat with detectives and hear what they're talking about and kind of hang out with them for like a couple weeks. And he was like, no, we're not doing that. You're like, what? Why wouldn't you do that? Right? Like, what? But they don't want that. Like, so because they're doing a fantasy version of the whole thing. And I am trying to bring I think it's just more interesting if it's the closer it gets to reality. To me, I think is the more authentic it feels, and then the better the story works. Because if you're buying that this is a real cop, now the stakes are different, right? And anyway, I'm going on a huge tangent there, but it just is. This is my life now, which is me, going, hey, can we bring in a kidnap for ransom guy? So KFR is kidnap for ransom. It's sort of like a mini industry, and it's usually it's handled by insurance companies and whatever, but a lot of ex special forces guys do it. and we got this kidnapping plot line. I'm like, hey, can we get a KFR guy in here just to talk to him? Like, how does this actually fucking work? And they're, oh, okay, but we do it, because they listen to me now. But yeah, it's a whole thing. Again, the closer you get, the better the whole thing works. Is all I'm going to say.
Do you think then that's why a lot of people don't want to do those things, like why actors pull away from that, or why people can't hack jiu-jitsu, etc., because they don't like being the beginner. They don't like being the guy that's not the star. They haven't got the confidence, the capabilities. So it's really hard for us to kind of say, okay, I need help. Can you show me how to do this? It can't be the
Right.
illusion I have in my head.
I mean, some guys probably, and some people. I mean, I think it's always funny to get guys. I always joke that like women pick up boxing a lot easier than men, because men want to fucking murder the mitts and like hit shit really hard, and you're like, no, just get your feet right, like get your feet moving the correct way, and like you can all of a sudden you're just look a lot, but like it's you don't have that ego piece of it. So certainly some people, get it all crossed up. And listen, I think there's a billion reasons. I mean, I don't roll anymore. I mean, I know I probably should, but I don't, and I haven't for years because I just kept getting hurt. And I had trouble kind of not going as hard as I could. I would always like, let's roll light, and then of course, like within 10 seconds, you're
Oh yes,
fucking
it's like let's
trying
flow
to.
roll, and it's almost like a full-on murder. Like,
Somebody goes for something and you're like, what? And you're like, oh shit. And then you're like, oh, now we're in it, and the same with sparring. It's like, let's spar light. Like, yeah, it's going to last. But, yeah, I mean, I think it is, I mean, why I wouldn't speculate why most people walk away from things. I think, again, but I think you're risking it, right? Again, that goes back to that. The world is made of fire. It's like, if you don't recognize that in some way, you really can just sort of, I mean, again, and just think about like, I mean, I'm like, God, if I'd only stuck with jujitsu, I'd be, so much better. It's like, yeah. So there you go. You know what I mean? How many things what regrets do you have and all that stuff?
It's time for a quick break. There are millions of potential products to buy, so how do you know which ones are worth your hard-earned money? Simple. You go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and explore those that will transform and improve your life. You'll find deals, listener exclusives, and special offers with some great companies. Recommendations are 100% honest and only on items Ian has tried or believes in. The companies showcased will make you a better man in all areas of your life. Simply go to nextlevelguy.com/affiliates and level up.
what characteristics did you notice? Because when you've interviewed and you've worked with a lot of like the greats, like Gable, Hoyce, Gracie, all these kind of amazing people, but were there sort of characteristics, sort of philosophies? Because you've said before about being the humble ones are the ones who go on to success. Were there characteristics or personality traits that really stuck with you that ordinary people could adopt?
That's a huge question. I think it's really interesting. I mean, so there's a saying that I wrote about once where a guy said, the right one is the right one, which means, he was talking about dogs, but it's also true of boxing trainers. Cause you put in 2 or 4 or 5, 6 years in a guy and he quits, or he can't get there, or he runs into his own limitations. And a lot of really talented athletes physically, don't have the willingness to stick in, and there's a manic side to it. There's a downside to it. And it's, by the way, it's not just humility. You also have to have ego, right? You have to have a ton of ego, because you have to go, when you're getting in there, you can't have any doubt that you're the fucking shit. You're going to kill this guy. Like that's where your head has to be. But then you have to learn, right? You have to be able to like we're talking about with jiu-jitsu, and you have to have the beginner's mind. And I mean, I used to, whenever anybody would catch me in something, I would ask them to show me how, what it was, and they'd be flattered, but it was like, I want to see what they did, and I want to know, particularly somebody's like, the idea that somebody has a bread and butter move. It's like, steal that shit, dude. Somebody's got a great guillotine, like steal it. So yeah, I mean, the right one is the right one. It's really hard to know who the right balance of what it's going to be, and there's something kind of unknowable about it, just because the training is such a long piece, right? It's like you have to commit for, it's not just a year; it's years and years, 10 years of your life to be successful uh, at a sport anyway. So yeah, I don't have a lot of help there, man. I'm sorry. Right one is the right one.
Because that's what I liked about your books is like they're not just about fighting for the sake of fighting. You're discovering yourself and other people, and you're kind of explaining the hardships and the life journeys they're going through. But what did it teach you about fear? Because you did stuff on fighting that on your other books that you were maybe not happy to do, or that you're maybe scared to do. What did you learn about fear and approaching all aspects of something and not just the bits you were comfortable with?
Well, it's interesting. So I wrote a survival book. Was the last one was more about fear, because you realize, like, fighting in a cage is, you're not going to die, right? Like, so there's a high level of fear, but you're not getting into condition black where your brain is shutting off, or you're having like serious cognitive issues because of the amount of adrenaline and norepinephrine pumping in your system, because your body's like, you're going to die. So that was a really interesting journey with that book. But yeah, fear. I mean, again, it's stuff already, which is, the more you do it, the less fear there is, right? It's what from training any sport, right? If, like, you have good repetitions in the bag, when you blindly go into the bag, which you'll do, and when you're under a lot of stress, you'll get a good repetition out of it. And so, yeah, what they call stress inoculation, all that stuff. I mean, it doesn't always cross over. It's interesting. There's guys who have a high stress tolerance, and then you put them on a boat and they fucking lose their shit, right? Because they're like, we're gonna die. And you're like, we're not gonna die. It's fine, dude. It's just rough. Like, water's coming in. Like, we're actually in good shape here. But so it doesn't always carry over. It can be wildly different. And also, I mean, fear is important, right? Fear saves your life. There was that story of a guy who was a Army Ranger, and he went into the rapids somewhere, and he was so stress inoculated. He was like, I'm good. And then he died. He drowned, So it's like, he needed to be, the fear actually let him down in that situation. So yeah, fear is good. It's good for you. There's a lot of interesting stuff written about it. I mean, Gavin Becker wrote about The Gift of Fear, which is a kind of classic of the genre. Like, how do you distinguish fear from anxiety, right? Like, do you hate your job, and so you hate the city, and so you're afraid of the city, or is there something else happening? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those are interesting questions to get into. Yeah, but I mean, I think I was, again, drawn to it because I didn't like it, the feeling of fear, and so I would do things that I was afraid of, and I'd do them until I wasn't scared of them.
I like that. I mean, because a big part of your books, you seem to invest in failure, invest in the fear. Like things like people couldn't handle the isolation of living on a boat for so long. People couldn't handle going away and being like the lowest fighter in the whole like camp of
Right.
fighters and stuff like that. Whereas you seem to just throw yourself into that. Is that the biggest lie we tell ourselves about capability, about confidence? And we should be doing that instead. It's chasing fear until we're no longer scared of the thing in a controlled enough way.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel like grit. There's a lot of being written about grit, right, or like determination, and that's all I do is stick with shit. I mean, and I don't mind. I think the big probably mistake people make is like that physical discomfort and pain is a big deal. It's just not that big a deal, right? I'm not to get all Buddhist on you. It's just a feeling. It's just a sensation.
No.
And you can stand on your head for, like, I always joke, you can stand on your head for 6 months, right? Like, I just took a job, but I'm like, I got to drive. I'm like, fuck. I have to write in my office, and now I got to drive. It's like, yeah, you can commute, buddy. It's okay. It's not that hard. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's what I would say. I think people mistake physical discomfort for something worse. You know what I mean? And it's not only is it not a big deal, it's good for you. It's again, you want to appreciate your bed and your shower. And it's like, well, spend a couple of months sleeping on the ground, and it'll be great. I mean, people always joke about they want to sail around the world. I'm like, okay, cool. Let's go sit in your car for the next 2 weeks. We're just going to sit in your car. So let's do that first and see how that goes. But it's great. The other way, it's beautiful, and you get to see shit you can't ever see another way. You get into places where you can't ever get. I mean, I keep wanting to do it again. I don't know if I ever will, but.
So then, is confidence an accumulation of evidence that you can do these things, that you don't need to run from them, that they're not as bad or they're not as scary or they're not as destructive as we have in our head? By actually doing it and collecting the evidence, you say, I can actually do these things. So you become confident.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that sounds right. I mean, it's anything terrifying. Again, when you learn to drive, right? You were the first, that your adrenaline was going crazy, right? You could, trying to drive is the first couple times is scary, getting on the highway or whatever. And now you do it without even being awake. Basically, your brain doesn't even work. So, absolutely, competence and repetition. And again, it's just, you think about the world, and it's like, there's that joke that war or whatever. It's like an elephant. It's like three blind men describing an elephant, and one guy's got the trunk, and one guy's got the tail, and one guy's got a foot, and they're all describing it, and they have wildly different descriptions. And I think that's true with just life. It's like you want to open your eyes and kind of see what it is. You got to try to do it, or get as close as you can, or talk to a lot of people who did it. You're not going to be able to do everything, right? Like, I'm never going to prison, hopefully, knock on wood, but I have a good friend who did 20 some years in Folsom and was totally exonerated. So he was innocent and won a big settlement. And there's 2 documentaries about him on Netflix. But, interestingly, okay, you want to talk about a prison movie or a prison scene? Let's go talk to Frankie. Let's go find out what that, because, there's so much bullshit out there. And certainly with fighting, right? It's what drew us all to it. Is you see Bruce Lee fight 50 dudes. You're like, I could fight 50 dudes. But let's go actually find out what that's like.
Because you've said that capability allows you to enjoy the world more. Does capability reduce the anxiety by your ability to interact with the world? You reduce anxiety, and it increases your ability to not shit the bed, so to speak, to actually survive these things.
And you can enjoy it. You can think about it. You can kind of enjoy this moment and take it in a different way. Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, this is classic sports training. The more you do it, the better it gets. And the easier it gets to a certain extent. And hopefully you can get into the zone and flow. And, writing about the fighter's mind was so interesting, getting into the idea of the flow and how hippie it is. It's like you're in touch with the universe. You're like, what are you talking about? But that's kind of, something interesting about it is the more you know about something, the more you've done it, the more you can flow with it, right? And get into it. And it doesn't happen you have to fall into it, right? It's this very Zen ideas.
Because
the fun part about Zen is I can't tell you about it. You have to learn it.
Because that reminds me of the thing I learned about jiu-jitsu was if I went full in, I'm going to smash the fuck out, I'm angry, I'm going to win this round, I would lose. But if I went super easy and kind of, I'm having some fun in that, I'd lose. I seem to be between the mix between ego and aggression,
right.
And between those two and not caring in the world, just having some fun. There seems to be this vantage point, and it's like that kind of hippie mentality that you're mentioning there. Did you discover that about yourself, that you had to walk between the two sides of yourself?
Well, I think maybe. I think there's, first of all, I think, what Dan Gable would talk about, which is that everybody's so different. So he would have, when he was wrestling, he had a dossier on each opponent. When he was coaching, he had a dossier on each of his students, right? So some of them he would slap because they needed to get fucking fired up, and some of them he didn't need to. Right? They were already fired up, and that slap would have probably put them over the top. Like you're saying, now they're too rage filled, and they're their own worst enemy now. So everybody is going to be an experiment of one in terms of like where your performance and where your stress levels are really meshing with what's going on. I mean, I've just been talking to a lot of baseball players. I'm working on a baseball thing, and I never liked. I mean, I've sort of played it as a kid, never really liked it. But that's such a the more you try, the worse you do. It's such a hard thing to do, to hit that 100-mile-an-hour fastball, whatever. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, for me personally, I'm just I was never that great an athlete, so my only kind of ability was, I'm a big guy and whatever, but I can get in great shape. I can get in good shape, I can get in pretty good shape, so I could wear guys out, I could wear you out, and I could push you, and I was good enough to hang kind of at the bottom end of the high level guys, but you're like, yeah, you my joke is like, you're told all men are created equal, but you learn, you're in grammar school, you're third grade, and, there's one kid who's the fastest, and that's
still
it.
hate him to this day.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you're like, yeah, he's faster. And it's certainly true in fighting. Not all men are created equal. You know what I mean? There's guys you can't hurt, and they can hurt you. And there's guys, it's like, I used to joke, it'd be like you fighting a 10-year-old, you know what I mean, is them fighting you, because it's like, if you get in a fight with a 10-year-old right now, there's not a lot they're going to do to you, right? It's like, nah, they can do whatever they want, and I'll still decide when this ends. I'll decide you're so much stronger, they can't really hurt you. And I think for high-level pros that I would, have the misfortune of sparring with or whatever, you're like, oh, right, I can't even hurt this fucking guy, right? Like, there's nothing. The worst I can do is piss him off, and then he's going to kill me, right? And so he's just trying to survive. So yeah, and then I'm like, oh, I'm a writer. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be champ. I'm not going to be champ. I can enjoy it. And fighting was great to me, but I wasn't particularly good at it. I'm good at it compared to a guy who doesn't do it. Sure. But I not compared to guys who do it. You're like, okay, that's great. And then, but I was always a nerd, man. I mean, I was always a fucking bookish kid who loved to read, and I played Dungeons and Dragons. I lived in a fantasy world as a kid.
Because
and I'll defend it.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's like everybody else assumes that, you don't know me, man. The red mist could just come down and I'll smash everybody. And you realize it's like you put somebody who's brand new in a jiu-jitsu gym against somebody who's been there a couple of weeks, just any level of competency, and they look like a master compared to them. They just understand it. And I think that's something that until you've done it, and it's like, for me, the strangest thing was breaking of personal space. How you're told to like be respectful of each person's space and don't get too close to women on the tube and all this kind of stuff as a man, and that it could be misinterpreted by what you mean, etc. And then suddenly they're like, lie on top of this person, bend their arm behind their head, and you're just like, what?
No, it's like a one night stand, right? You're swapping fluids with this person, basically. You know what I mean? When you're having a fight, that's what Randy Couture used to say. No, it's yeah. There's a lot of huge miles, like new shit to you when you start getting involved in this, just being intimate with people in this weird way. And Pat Miletich always used to be like, I'm worried my guys will get in a bar fight and kill somebody because they're going to punch somebody who doesn't know how to take a punch, right? And people don't understand what the difference. They've never gotten hit in their life, right? They've never gotten punched in the face, and it's a surprise. It's a shock when the first time it happens. But it doesn't have to be. Again, once you learn how to. By the way, this is what always the problem is with police officers in the United States. They don't train enough, right? They don't get enough stress inoculation. They all should train jiu-jitsu or whatever, and so they overreact and they go to their weapon, right? And they go to They go to tase somebody or they go to shoot somebody because now they're terrified. When you do jiu-jitsu, you learn how to like live under somebody bigger than you. You can protect yourself. You're like, okay, it's not that you don't panic. You don't fucking lose your shit. You got to kill them. It's like, okay, it's bad, but you can get out of it. You can, or at least you can not get hurt. So anyway, that's all stress inoculation. Is good stuff.
And did you understand the changes in yourself during these things, like living on the boat, the fighting, the dog things, the working with the gangs, the apocalypse, all the amazing stuff you've done, which is like a podcast on its own. Did you understand that, or did writing become that way of understanding yourself and understanding the change in yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I guess writing again. I don't think I noticed. I wasn't noticing changes in myself. But I know there were. Obviously, there's plenty of them. I had friends who were like, "God, you have so." They would say like it's a bad thing. Like you're so confident now. You're like, okay, sorry. Like I don't know. This is just from sailing, right? Sailing was fascinating because it's the first 6 months of professional sailing. It's like there's a fucking vocabulary, right? Of like it's like 10,000 new words you got to learn.
Yep.
Like, the what now? The what am I doing? But it's great. I mean, it's fun. It's intense, and you learn a lot. And again, you have to go through things to know what to do. So yeah, probably writing was again trying to digest it, trying to process, and trying to find meaning in it. But it wasn't so much for me. I don't find myself very interesting, and I had to learn to do that as a writer because, like I'm saying, like you have to pick a character who arcs in this fucking story, and it's got to be you for a first person nonfiction book. But yeah, you try to process and you try to learn and you try to grow and you try to just understand. I think is all that I was interested in and all I've managed to do. I think I do understand a lot more than I did.
So would you agree then that you weren't chasing adventure as such, that you were chasing the version of yourself that these adventures would create in you?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I always would joke I'm a guy who goes and doesn't have adventures because I feel like adventures is when you fuck up and like run out of water and almost die. Like I want to go do shit and like not have it turn into life and death. Like not have it be a disaster. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, I don't think I ever thought about it as like, okay, I did want to. I guess there was a piece of me that was like, I want to have a life like the books I read. When I was a little kid, I want to have a life like Conan. I'm reading Robert E. Howard. In 5th grade or whatever, 4th grade. Which I did not do. I don't have the hair for it. Didn't work out. But yeah, I mean, I it wasn't as intentional. It was more just I think because it sounded like a good idea at the time. I had the worst publicity people. They hooked me up. They put me on Jon Stewart's Daily Show. That was the first piece of press I ever did, and I'd never done press before, and I didn't know what to do. And like, you can't. It's like brilliant lights. You can't see anything, and like it's like. And I think I said something like, it seemed like a good idea at the time, which is not the answer that anybody wanted, but you have to be like a politician when you do press. I mean, you have to go, okay, no matter what they ask, I'm going to say fighting's about identity. Whatever the book you're pushing is, like, okay, just say that, right? Talk about the thing. What's the 2 things you want to say about the book you're saying? Who cares what they ask? I didn't know that. But yeah, so I still, I guess, don't see myself as interesting. Again, like there's things I can talk about that I like, and there's things that I've done that are interesting. But those things are interesting, not me. I'm just along for the ride. I'm just trying to. And even my job when I was a writer, I was like, I'm just trying to obsess about something, and I obsess about it for years, and I learn as much as I can, and I talk to professors, and I talk to people who do it, and I read 50 books, and then I read another 50 books, and then I digest it, and I give it to you, and you give me $8 or whatever, and then we're good. And you can take that or not take it. It doesn't bother me. But that's who I am in terms of how I see myself.
I like how that you've done all these things. You've had more versions of a life than most people will ever even get a sniff at. But you're just like, I don't see myself as that interesting. But are there
It's
versions of
funny.
yourself looking back now that you're like, I'm glad that version of Sam's not there? Like how can we get rid of the version that we don't like and become, chase this new version of ourselves? Did you find a way to do this?
Yeah, I never had anything. There was definitely like times when I was partying too hard in college and doing a few too many drugs and things and sort of dabbled with getting into actual health issues and stuff. But so I'm not a guy who's got a lot of self-help talk, but I would say just like, you can change, you know what I mean? Like you definitely can change. That's the thing. I think people, and that's easy to say, right? I know that depression is a whole fucking shit show of also your brain is a chemistry set. I'll
Yeah.
say that, dude, for sure. Your brain is like, it's just, there's stuff that's just chemical going on and it's not you and it's not the world. It's like, you can fix that with some, or you can help it maybe, and you can change. And that's definitely possible. So I guess that would be the only thing I would hold out.
So how then did becoming a father change you? Because you've done all these amazing things. You've gone and chased adventures. Well, you like versions of adventures. I know you don't like to call them adventures, but it was always stuff that you wanted to do and living in your like chasing your sort of dreams, etc. But suddenly having a kid and being married, etc. It's no longer just your choices to make alone. Did that change you? Did that
Totally.
grow you in a way?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, I think I wrote about this a little bit in Disaster Diaries, but it's like you tie your lives together, right? You enmesh yourselves with people, and even you're it's a part of getting older and growing up and becoming a man is like, okay, you're putting somebody else's happiness before yours, right? You're going, okay, I don't, but that's not that big a deal. It's like, okay, am I ever that happy? Ever that, like, whatever. Like, it's like, but you're prioritizing other people. You've shown, I think I wrote one of my favorite lines I ever wrote was, you've shown the universe you're replaceable, right? Like you've replaced yourself. It's funny. So my wife we had the baby and he was maybe 8 months old or something. And I went to the Amazon, like I used to do, like a kind of an old, like I had a buddy who, actually Tony D'Souza was going to meet me there. He's a fighter and he couldn't make it. And so I was there by myself and running around for like, I don't know, 2 months or maybe 6 weeks. And I was like, oh, I can't do that. That's it. Right. Like I can't leave her alone. Like she has, it's fucking a nightmare. She's, how much, I don't know if you have any children or anything,
Oh,
but it's
no.
a lot of work.
No, that I'm aware of.
When you start, it's like little babies are a lot of work, right? And you need help, and you're on a team now. You're part of something, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and certainly like the way I travel and the way I do things, it's been a big change. Part of it's the career has changed, right? So I changed careers and moved away from this kind of adventure writing into film and TV, which is more of a fucking job, right? Like I go to an office and I work on it, sometimes. I mean, again, I bitch about it, but it's like, okay, it's like a couple of months, a year or whatever. But I'm going to complain. You'll hear me complain.
And how do you balance that version? Because you said before, you didn't want to have the normal job, but now that you've kind of had all these adventures, and then now you're suddenly, you've been kind of almost not forced, but you've taken on this job. You've taken on the kind of like the marriage, the kids, etc. Not going away to the Amazon with an MMA fight or all these
Yeah.
things.
No, it's like I'm not going to Argentina to live on a ranch for like 3 months just to go because I'm writing a book about ranching or whatever. Like that's all true. I mean, the fun part for me is now my son is almost going to college, so I'm like, oh, I could, I'm not 50s, not.
I could get another book out of this.
Well, I mean, there's like I have some thoughts, and like you could start, doing stuff again, and I think I will. I think I actually really miss it in certain ways. My tolerance for misery is probably not what it was. Certainly, I've gotten pretty soft in LA, and I don't know if I would do. I would probably do it. You know what I mean? I'd probably do it. You could probably talk me into about anything, but there's things I would back off of. I mean maybe, but I still have a pretty good bucket list. A lot of things I still want to go check out, but it's funny. I've got some money now, which has also changed. I was always broke, right? So that's also a weird. I mean, the weird thing about that is, I'll just say this in passing, is you think like all your problems are financial, and then you get some money, just some comfortable money, and you go, oh fuck, like
Yeah.
60-70% of my problems are financial. There's 30% that are still just you. They're just, but it's comforting to go, oh man, if I had money, none of this, this would be an issue.
Is that
Turns
the
out that's not true.
is that the thing that kind of scares you? It's like suddenly finding that the perceived issues are not the problem. Like suddenly, oh, if I had money, I'd be fine. Oh, I've got money. Nothing's changed. Oh, if when I have kids or married or a long term partner, it's suddenly when we remove that, we go, oh fuck.
What the
Was
fuck is
there
that?
were there failures or struggles that you're actually grateful now for looking back?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's all been a good. I mean, I've sort of failed at everything. I mean, I don't know. I go through phases. I just, even this industry I'm in, I have, quote unquote, a successful career, and then, things don't get made. I write things for an audience of a few people, right? Like some executives hire me to write a script from a book, and then so they pay me, and then they go, we're not doing it or whatever. And you're like, fuck, man, I used to write a book and like at least like 10,000 people would read it, and now it's like 7 people read this. Like what? And I made a lot more money, but it's not getting made. And like, oh well, I guess that all that work is just gonna die. So that's a hard kind of weird thing to deal with. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of failure. There's so much failure in the last sort of 15 years of writing scripts. I mean, it just, people make fun of Hollywood for all the award shows. They're like, how many award shows do you need? And you're like, okay, just think of this. Everybody up there has got 50 or 60 projects that are dead, that have died, that they've worked for 2 years on.
Yeah.
So they get one that works and people like it, they're going to fucking party, right? You know what I mean? They're going to go crazy. I told my dad, I'm like, imagine if you built a house, you're a builder and you've got one house that you've built with people living in it, and the rest are all plans. You're like, I'm going to go drive by the house people live in. I'm going to just go check it out. I'm going to go look at it, because it's like, this is what you're trying to do, and it's so rare that it ever works out. So I think that's one of the misperceptions about the business. But
Does that scare you
yeah,
then that like the story's not been told? Like because you were saying about the 50, 60 things that not that's why you wanted to live these things, because you didn't want to just read about them. You wanted to put yourself as the main character in these stories and give them life and give them breath.
it's just depressing. It's not like, I don't know, it doesn't scare me. It just bums me out. It's just like, fuck, man, I put a lot of work into that. And again, I love everything I ever worked on. I'm like, that was a fucking good script, but it is what it is. There's a lot of reasons that things don't work out. It's not scary. It's just depressing.
So if you took all these journeys, all the lives, all the versions of Sam, all the hardships, the struggles, etc., what would you say to somebody who's listening and going, fuck, I want to do some of this stuff. This sounds amazing. He's the sort of guy that I would like to become. If people today wanted to change their life, what hardship would they start? Because you could easily say, go and live in your car for 2 weeks, whatever. But a hardship for them might be going outside and speaking to people, or it might be, taking on that career or breaking up with their partner who's been like,
Oh
more
God.
controlling, etc. How can we find the voluntary hardship for ourselves at the level we're at?
I would never tell anybody, anything what to do. But I think, again, it's possible, and it's tiny, tiny steps, and those are all wildly different. I think for the stuff I was doing, like adventurous life or whatever, like you can do it. Like you can, save some money, and you can go cheap, and like go live in Thailand, go, or even like the internet's amazing, right? Spend an hour a day just looking at cool shit. Like go be a dive slave. If you like scuba diving, you can go work at a resort in wherever. If you can get your nurse practitioner degree, like nurses can get a job anywhere. I almost got a nursing degree because I'm like, you can go work in Australia, you can go live in New Zealand, you can go live anywhere, or with a CPA or a nursing degree. Now, I mean, in terms of getting out of stuff, I mean, all I would say is I think you can do tiny things and start the process, and maybe that's a way. I mean, I would never tell anybody, what to do about depression, but I know that people who drink coffee are slightly less depressed than, less prone to depression.
Mhm.
And it's like, just because you drink enough coffee and you're like, oh, at least I go for a walk, you got to go outside, and like now you feel a little bit better. So there's tiny things you can do to kind of start the process, and maybe they can snowball into something that actually, ends up being a big change. And I just think being open to change is probably it.
Would you say then that that's the habit that you would want everybody that could potentially start changing their life for the next decades, etc., is to be just open to change no matter where they are at their starting point?
I guess, yeah. I mean, you said it, not me. I mean, I don't. I think again, I'm not a guy who gives self help advice. I think that's a complicated, place to live, and there's no easy answers. But yeah, I guess I would say, yeah, being open to the idea that things could get better, as opposed to being in despair, and then like they say, like your habits, right? Like exercise a little bit, start walking, and by the way, nobody gives a fuck at the gym if you're fat or weak. Nobody gives up. They're only looking at everybody at the gym only looks at people stronger than them.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit about people. Like they could people go to the gym and they're like, people, no, nobody's looking at you, dude. Like nobody cares. Like they're psyched you're here. Like great for you. Go get on the treadmill. Like whatever. Nobody's judging you. Nobody's judging you. It's like they're all worried about who's fitter than them. You know what I mean? It's just
And
so
their own progress, and they take
yeah,
it as a
people want to take
compliment getting asked question.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. Like, how do you do that lift? Like, oh my God, you'll make somebody so happy. You'll make that weightlifter. Oh, he would love to tell you about what he's doing. Anybody who's in there like that. I mean, yeah, I guess that's what I would say. I think there's, just the tiniest things, the tiniest steps. Anything you can do that's even as small as getting a cup of coffee and having caffeine help.
And you did mention about your bucket list. If you had to write a story right now about one of your bucket list goals, which one would you pick?
Oh God. Well, I just wanted so I just wrote a script about mountain climbing. I like to write about professions where people hold hands with death. These sort of interesting kind of super high stakes, like fighter pilots, these alpinists, right? Like who are doing stuff, and like a couple of their friends die a year. By the way, I had a friend, the guy who was gonna be my DP. He passed away in an avalanche this year.
Sorry to hear that.
I mean, again, he's putting himself out there. Yeah, it's terrible. It's tragic, and he's a guy who skied off Everest and did stuff like that. It's like you put yourself in these situations, and you're rolling the dice. So I'd love to go. I'm not going to do anything that crazy, but there's a couple of treks I'd like to do in Nepal that are interesting, in Tibet and maybe Bhutan. Um, and I'll get to them. Luckily, I'm still pretty healthy. Again, I've seen my parents. It's interesting where I'm at now. I mean, my parents are both in their 80s, and you see the change at 80. So you figure, okay, I got 20, 25 years where you're still pretty active. And so, okay, like let's get down to business. Like, okay, I'm going to dive the Galapagos. Never done that, like a few things like that. I gotta try to get to. Yeah, and again, the books I want to write are very different. and not for money, So I'm not as interested in trying to write something that's going to sell well versus exploring something I'm really interested in. Which I think, to me, there's a book in my next, if I ever get around to it, which is just about. I think there's something under researched, which is about cruelty and why cruelty is sort of this part of human life. And I won't go any farther than that, but it's just it's something I'm curious about, and I think there's a Sam Sheridan book about cruelty somewhere out there lurking. We'll see if we ever get to it, but maybe.
I do love that when that passion, that fire burns in your eyes again, when the challenge, it's not you going, I want to go out and like shake hands with the devil or the death, etc. You're kind of, I'm interested in this, I want to go and find out about it. It's the curiosity that seems to drive you.
Yeah. No, I think that's, again, it's like, what else are we doing here? What else do you got? Like, it's like, what's the point of being alive if you're not curious and trying to figure it out?
Well, I'd love to have you back on and do, like, there's so many different rabbit holes I'm trying to
Sure.
avoid going down and kind of covering stuff and that, but I've used up so much of your time already. But what would you want
Thank you.
people
No, perfect.
to take from this?
What's that?
What would you want people to take from this? What do you want them to remember as, if you had to sum up your book's life choice, is it that we are more capable than we give ourselves credit?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that, if you want to take something from it, I think you definitely, if you're willing to suffer a little bit, which is, and suffering is physical suffering is not a big deal. Like, for the most part, I get it. There's people who are debilitating pain, and there's always going to be exceptions to anything I say. But you can take a lot more than you think you can, and you can handle a lot more than you think you can. I met a guy once who was an ultra marathoner, and he was like, "Yeah, I ran a half marathon, and then I ran a marathon in the same time." It's like, you just don't know how fast you are. Like, you don't know what you can do, and I think people worry too much about discomfort or fear and not knowing and whatever, and it just, it's less scary than you think once you get into it. It's like David Blaine once said, like, what one man can do, another man can do.
No,
to some extent, you know what I mean? Like, you can dig in and you can find out and figure it out. Yeah, I don't know. Does that help? I don't know.
And how could people follow this journey then? Until we can get the new book out and all these amazing adventures you're going to go on to.
The beauty of it is, I got nothing for you. You can look at the old books. I have a website which somebody keeps an eye on. I do not. I'm not on Instagram. If you want to find me, you can. I'll respond eventually to emails. But I got nothing. Again, I'm making my money writing TV and film, and I got nothing I'm pushing. But again, whatever, man. It's all good. Yeah, come find me. I'll talk to you. If you got something you want to talk about. I help people with writing because people help me. So if you want to talk about writing, I'll talk about writing.
Well, that's it for another week, and thank you for listening. It's now time to take what you've learned and use it to develop and enhance your life with the key points mentioned. Listen, try it, embrace it, use it, and crush it. Now's your time to hit that next level in your life. If you liked this episode, then please leave a comment on the show notes or a review of the show on your podcast platform. Everything helps evolve the show. Until next week, keep seeking the next level in your life.